Evelyn was really upset, and she tried to explain everything to Jacob. He was acting nervous, like he always did when he was worried. He ran his hand through his hair, which was something he always did when he was stressed. Claire, Jacob's sister, had been asking for help. She needed money for her kids' school fees, and there was also a car that needed to be fixed. Evelyn couldn't believe what she was hearing when Jacob told her he had given their rent money to Claire. "Are you serious?" Evelyn asked, holding up the eviction notice. "You gave our rent money to her?" Jacob stepped a little closer, reaching for Evelyn's hands, but Evelyn pulled away. She didn't want him touching her right now. "She's been struggling ever since Aaron died," Jacob said, his voice soft. "She just needed some help." But Evelyn was so mad. "You can't keep giving her all our money," she said. She showed him their bank account, where she saw that Jacob had sent Claire $5,000 over the last 2 months. "That's our savings," Evelyn shouted. "We need that money to keep our home." Jacob didn't answer. He just stood there, looking at the floor. Evelyn knew he was feeling guilty, but she was too upset to care. "What else don't I know about?" she asked, her voice shaking. Jacob was quiet. He couldn't meet her eyes. Evelyn suddenly felt like everything around her, the pictures of them on the wall, the nice coffee machine they had saved up for, was a lie. She couldn't believe everything had gone so wrong. She picked up her suitcase and started packing. She wasn't leaving just yet, but she wanted to be ready in case they had to leave their home because of the eviction. "I need to be ready," Evelyn said. The sheriff could come any day now. Jacob didn't know what to say. He called after her. "Please, we can figure this out." Evelyn didn't stop packing. "You need to decide something right now," she said, looking at Jacob. "Who's more important to you, your wife or your sister? Because right now, you can't have both." Jacob stayed silent. He knew she was right, but he didn't want to say it out loud. The next morning, Evelyn went to work, but she couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. She tried to focus on her job, working on a new marketing campaign, but the eviction notice kept popping into her mind. She kept hearing the sound of moving boxes being dragged across their floor the night before, and she couldn't stop thinking about Claire and her kids moving into their spare room. At work, Evelyn's boss, Luke, waved his hand in front of her face. "Evelyn, are you okay?" he asked. "You seem really distracted." "Sorry," Evelyn said. She tried to shake it off. "I have a lot on my mind." After the meeting, Evelyn ducked into the break room. She needed to talk to her best friend, LLA. But before she could even call her, Claire's Instagram popped up on her phone. Claire's kids were posing in brand new soccer uniforms with a caption that read, "Fresh start #bless #new beginnings." Evelyn's hands shook as she looked at the picture. Claire and her kids were acting like everything was fine, while Evelyn was facing the possibility of losing their home. Evelyn quickly typed a message to LLA. "Emergency wine needed at my place after work." LLA's response came right away. "On my way. Bringing the good stuff." When LLA showed up at Evelyn's apartment, she could see how upset Evelyn was. She looked at the mess in the living room. Claire's kids were running around, screaming and playing. Evelyn's fancy coffee maker was sitting on the counter, its pot empty. LLA pulled Evelyn into the kitchen. "Okay, Spill," Ellis said, pouring them both a glass of wine. "What's going on?" Evelyn told her everything. She told LLA about the eviction notice, the money Jacob had given Claire, and how Claire had just moved in with them. LLA listened carefully. "Evelyn," LLA said after a moment, "this isn't just about money. This is financial abuse." "What do you mean?" Evelyn asked, confused. LLA pulled out her phone and showed Evelyn Claire's social media. Claire had been posting pictures of herself shopping, getting new clothes, and going to spas, all while Evelyn was trying to figure out how to pay the rent. "This is wrong," LLA said. "Claire is living the high life, and you're struggling to keep your home. And Jacob is letting it happen." Evelyn's heart sank. She looked back at the living room. One of Claire's kids had knocked over a vase that had been a gift from Evelyn's grandmother. "Sorry, Aunt Evelyn," the little boy said, running off to the next disaster. Evelyn sighed. "Where's Jacob while all this is going on?" she asked. LLA raised an eyebrow. "He's working late, right? But you think he's avoiding the situation?" Evelyn nodded. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jacob. "Mom's coming for dinner, Aranoro. Just wanted you to know." LLA read the message over Evelyn's shoulder. "Margaret's coming too?" LLA asked. "She's part of the problem too." Evelyn felt a wave of frustration wash over her. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay," she whispered. "Then don't," LLA said firmly. "You need to stand up for yourself. You can't let them take advantage of you anymore. You're smart, Evelyn. You're a marketing genius. It's time to market yourself as someone who won't be taken advantage of." The next evening, they had the family dinner. It was exactly what Evelyn expected. Chaos and uncomfortable conversations. Margaret, Jacob's mom, came in with her famous casserole and started praising Claire for being such a great mom. Evelyn could feel the anger bubbling up inside her. Jacob looked uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. Evelyn felt like she was an outsider in her own home. Then Claire's phone rang. She quickly ignored it, but Evelyn noticed her hands were shaking. "Everything okay?" Evelyn asked. "Oh, it's just spam," Claire said, trying to sound calm. But Evelyn didn't believe her. Something wasn't right. She could feel it. As the night went on, Evelyn realized she couldn't keep going like this. Something had to change. She didn't know yet if she should leave Jacob or just focus on taking care of herself. But one thing was clear. She couldn't let them drain her life away any longer. Claire was sitting at the table when her phone rang. It rang 3 times, and the third time, I noticed it was from Rent-A-Center, a place that rents out furniture and other things. Claire quickly excused herself and ran to the bathroom, almost like she was in a hurry. She left her phone on the table, and the screen lit up with a text message. I saw the message clearly. It said, "Final notice. Payment overdue for Louis Vaughn purchase account. Account being sent to collections." The room went completely silent. Everyone was quiet, and no one knew what to say. I looked at my sister-in-law, Margaret, and I could tell she was worried about Claire. She stood up and said she would check on her, but I had already decided to go myself. I quickly grabbed Claire's phone and headed toward the bathroom. My heart was racing. I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew something wasn't right. When I opened the bathroom door, I found Claire sitting on the edge of the bathtub. Her mascara was running down her face, and she looked upset. I could see she was holding back tears. "They're going to take everything," she whispered. I was confused. "What do you mean, everything?" I asked her. She looked up at me, and for the first time since she moved in, I saw real fear in her eyes. She started explaining. "The furniture, the bags, the kids' gaming systems, it's all rented or on credit. I thought I could keep up with the payments. I thought if I just got one good client, everything would be okay." I frowned. "But you told Jacob you needed money for the kids' school fees," I said, surprised. Claire looked down and whispered, "I did, but then there were the credit card bills and rental payments. I couldn't keep up. I didn't want anyone to know how bad it was. After Aaron died, I didn't want the kids to see how bad things were. They had already lost their dad. I couldn't let them lose everything too." I sat next to her, and I felt a mix of anger and sympathy. "So, you let Jacob lose everything instead?" I asked, frustrated. Claire looked up at me with a fierce look. "I never asked," she said. I shook my head. "You didn't have to ask. You just had to look sad enough and mention the kids enough times, and he would give you what you wanted." Claire didn't say anything. She just looked away, but her silence was answer enough. I went back to the dining room, and I could hear Margaret comforting Jacob. She was telling him he was doing the right thing by helping Claire. She said I didn't understand family loyalty. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. I couldn't believe what I saw. Jacob had given Claire $27,000 over the past year. I showed Claire the number, $27 $1,000. That's how much Jacob's given you in the past year, I said quietly. She looked confused. What? I nodded. $27,000. While we're facing eviction, he's been giving you money. I went through all our accounts last night. Claire started to cry. I'll pay it back, she whispered, once I get steady work. I swear. When was the last time you actually looked for work, Claire? I asked. Real work, not just posting on Instagram about being a freelance creative. She flinched. You don't understand, she said softly. No, I said, shaking my head. I do understand. You're scared, but you're not the only one losing everything. I stood up and looked at her. You have two choices. Either you tell Jacob and Margaret the truth right now, or I will. And I'll include the screenshots I took of all your purchases. Claire grabbed my arm. Please, just give me a few more days. I have a real interview, Aranoro. I swear. I looked at her, but I couldn't feel sorry for her anymore. I'm done watching my marriage die to keep your secrets. I walked out of the bathroom and headed back to the dining room, leaving Claire behind. As I walked, I could hear Jacob defending me to his mom. He said I was right about needing boundaries. But then Margaret responded, boundaries? Family doesn't have boundaries. Family takes care of its own, no matter what. I squared my shoulders and walked into the dining room, Claire following behind me. It's time to find out exactly what family means to everyone at this table, I said. Later that day, I was sitting in our empty apartment. Claire had taken the kids to the park, and I was alone. I noticed something strange about the mail on the counter. An envelope from Jacob's company caught my eye, but it wasn't addressed to Jacob. It was addressed to Claire. I shouldn't have opened it, but after everything that had happened, I felt like I deserved to know the truth. Inside the envelope was a job offer. It wasn't just any job. It was a senior graphic design position at Jacob's company. The salary was higher than what I made after 5 years at my job. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This offer was from 2 weeks ago, but Claire hadn't told anyone about it. I got a text from my boss, Luke. It said, "Missing you today. Hope everything's okay. By the way, weird question. Did you recommend someone named Claire Whitman for our design contract?" I stared at my phone, shocked. I texted back, "When? Yesterday? She was your sister-in-law. Her portfolio looked great, but I wanted to check with you first." I was still staring at my phone when Jacob came home early. He looked tired, like he had a long day at work. "Hey, you're home," I said. But he stopped when he saw the letter from his company in my hand. "When were you going to tell me about this?" I asked quietly, showing him the letter. Jacob sighed. "Evelyn, I can explain." I shook my head. "Explain what? That you got Claire a job, and now she's too good to take it? Or that she's playing the struggling widow while secretly applying for contracts behind my back?" Jacob sat down on the couch, looking defeated. "She's scared, Evelyn. I didn't want to hear that excuse anymore. The job at your company? She said it would feel like charity. But taking our rent money isn't charity. That's different." Jacob looked like he didn't know what to say. I showed him a message I had gotten. "Just saw Claire at Nordstrom using your credit card. Call me." Jacob's face went pale. "That's impossible." I canceled the card. I pulled up our credit card app. It's not impossible. We spent $33,000 in one day. Jacob buried his face in his hands. "I'll talk to her." I wasn't done. "Like you've talked to her about the job? About the contracts? About our savings?" Jacob didn't answer right away, and I could feel the tension building. Before he could say anything else, Claire came bursting through the door, carrying shopping bags. She froze when she saw us. I didn't wait for her to say anything. "Save it," I said, holding up the job offer letter. "Congratulations on your new position, the one you didn't tell anyone about." Claire's eyes widened and she looked at Jacob. "You promised you wouldn't tell her." He didn't answer and I stepped in. "Thanks for confirming you're both lying to me." Claire's face became hard, and she said, "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything." I stood up and grabbed my keys and purse. "Actually, I do, because that's exactly what's happening right now." Jacob stood up too. "Where are you going?" "To work," I said, my voice cold. "Someone in this house has to." As I walked to the door, I paused. "By the way, Claire, I just texted Luke about your contract application. Don't bother following up." Claire's face crumpled, but I didn't feel bad anymore. I left without looking back. For the next 3 days, I stayed at Zoe's apartment and ignored everyone's calls except for Luke's. On the 4th day, I walked into work, and to my surprise, Claire was sitting in the lobby, looking different. She didn't look like the polished social media influencer she usually tried to be. She looked broken. She stood up when she saw me and said in a rough voice, "Please, I need to talk to you." I didn't answer right away. I just kept walking, but she followed me. "Jacob moved out," she said, laughing bitterly. "He's staying at Mom's. He said he needed time to think." My finger froze over the elevator button. "What?" Claire nodded. "Guess that makes 2 of us who ruined everything." I didn't know how to respond, but then Luke appeared. He asked me if I had a minute. "Actually," I said, surprised at myself, "can we use your office?" We all went into Luke's office, and Claire's mask finally cracked. She admitted she had messed up. She had applied for the contract. She didn't even know it was my company's. She apologized and said she wasn't competing with me, just trying to prove she could be good enough on her own. I wasn't sure if I believed her yet, but I could see she was telling the truth. Finally, I wasn't just Aaron's widow or Jacob's sister or someone you feel sorry for. My phone buzzed, and it was a message from Jacob. He asked, "Can we really talk? No family, no drama, just us." I looked at Claire. She seemed different, not trying to trick me, but desperate. I understood that feeling because I used to work extra hard, weekends and all, to prove I could succeed without any help from family. I told her the job offer was off the table, but Claire looked at me, her face hopeful. "Luke's looking for a full-time designer. It's an entry-level job, and you can work on your own projects not related to me or Jacob. The interview is yours if you want it," I said firmly. "But Claire, this is your one chance to do things right." She looked up at me. "Why would you help me after everything?" I showed her Jacob's text and said, "Because sometimes people need to lose everything to figure out what really matters. You're not the only one who had to prove something." She stared at the text and then looked at me. "Did he really move out?" she asked. "Apparently," I said. "What will you do?" she asked. I stood up and gathered my things. "I'm going to talk to my husband, and you're going to start acting like the person your kids think you are." As I reached the door, Claire called my name. "I'm really sorry." I didn't answer her, just said, "The interview is at 9 Aranoro. Don't be late," and left. I texted Jacob back, "Your place or mine?" His reply came right away. "Wherever we can start over. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about giving people a chance to do better, even yourself." I met Jacob at our favorite coffee shop, the place where we had our first date 6 years ago. He looked bad, like he hadn't shaved or changed his shirt in days. But before we could talk, Margaret burst in, marching right to our table. Claire followed her quietly, like a shadow. "Family meeting," Margaret said, sitting down without asking. "No, Mom," Jacob tried to say, but Margaret didn't let him finish. "I've watched this family fall apart long enough," she said. She took out a stack of papers. "I've remortgaged my house. We can pay off Claire's debts. Get you both back on your feet." I shook my head. "Just stop." "Evelyn," Claire whispered, "please just listen to." "More lies, more manipulation," I said, cutting her off. I looked at Jacob. "Did you know about this?" Jacob didn't answer. "Of course he did," Margaret said proudly, "because he understands that family comes first." Margaret slid a paper toward me. "Just sign here. It's a formality." We need your signature on the loan papers. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. Sign what? Well, since you and Jacob are still married, we need your signature for a loan to help Claire. The laugh that came out of me didn't sound like me at all. You want me to sign for a loan to help Claire again? Margaret nodded. It's the only way to stop everyone from losing everything. I pulled out my phone. The sheriff's office confirmed our eviction date. We have 7 days to move out. But sure, let's take out another loan. The whole coffee shop was quiet now, and other Kazerners tried to act like they weren't watching us. If you just sign, Margaret started again. I cut her off. I filed for separation yesterday. Jacob's face crumpled. Margaret froze. What? She demanded. Check your email, I said. Jacob already signed the papers. I picked up my purse. I'm done setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Claire grabbed my arm. Evelyn, please. I got the job at your company. I'm trying. I pulled away. Too late. Way too late. You ungrateful, Margaret started, her face red with anger. I turned to face her. You mean like draining my savings, ruining my credit, making me feel crazy for wanting to have boundaries? Jacob finally spoke. Evelyn, we can work this out. Can we? I asked. Because it looks like you're still choosing them. I started walking toward the door and turned back. Oh, and Margaret, I sent copies of Claire's fraudulent charges to your mortgage company. Good luck with that loan application. I stepped outside and my phone exploded with messages. Margaret called me a monster. Claire begged me to come back. Jacob said he loved me. I blocked them all. I walked to my car and looked at my reflection in a store window. I looked different, older, harder, but also stronger. My phone buzzed again. Luke, my boss, messaged me. Claire didn't show up for her first day. Want to tell me what happened? I stared at a family walking by, parents laughing with their kids. The kind of family I thought I was marrying into, the kind of family that loves you, not destroys you. I think I just burned every bridge I had, I told Luke quietly. Good, he replied. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to build something better. I got in my car and drove away. I looked back at the coffee shop one last time. Through the window, I could see them all together. Margaret was yelling. Claire was crying. Jacob was holding his head in his hands. That was my family, my problem, my past. I drove away, leaving them to clean up their own mess. 3 days later, I found Claire sitting on the floor outside my apartment. She was surrounded by moving boxes. They're getting evicted, she said without looking up. Mom's house. The mortgage company found out everything. I stepped over her, key in hand. Not my problem, I said, walking into my apartment. Claire stood up. I told Mom everything. About the credit cards, the shopping, the fake job interviews. I even showed her my real bank statements. I paused at the door. Why? Because you were right, she said quietly. I've been hiding behind Aaron's death, using it as an excuse to let everyone else carry my weight. I looked around the apartment. It felt empty, half the furniture gone. Jacob's things were on the kitchen counter, with a stack of papers organized neatly. What's this? I asked, picking up the papers. It's everything I owe you. The real numbers, she said. She picked up a box. I got a job. Not at your company, but a real job at a design firm across town. I started yesterday. Good for you, I said, but it came out tired, not sarcastic. She set the box down. Jacob moved out of Mom's place. He's staying at a motel for now. He said he needs to figure out who he is without everyone telling him what to do. I laughed. Took him long enough. Claire nodded. He loves you, Evelyn. No, I said. He loved the idea of me. The wife who sacrifices everything for his family's happiness. But that person doesn't exist anymore. Claire agreed. Maybe she shouldn't have. I stopped, frozen over a box of photo albums. You want to pay me back? I asked. Not just the money, though I'll take every cent, but for showing me what real strength looks like. Stop being a burden to everyone. Be the mother your kids deserve. Stop letting your grief control you. Claire burst into tears. I don't know how. That's what therapists are for, I said. What about family? Family? I asked, gesturing around at the half-empty apartment. Family doesn't destroy each other for sport. Claire looked down. I'm trying. A knock at the door interrupted us. It was Jacob. He looked better than he had in months. Sorry, he said when he saw Claire. I can come back. Claire grabbed her purse. I was just leaving. But Evelyn, she paused at the door. Thank you for being the only one brave enough to let me fall. When she left, Jacob and I stood there in the wreckage of our life together. I started therapy, he said quietly. Turns out, watching my dad drink himself to death leaves scars. It makes you scared of failing your family. I'm not your family anymore, I said, turning to leave. Jacob and I had been through a lot together. He ran his hand through his hair and said, You taught me what family should be, what love should be. Even if I learned it too late. My phone buzzed with a text from Luke. It said, You were right about Claire. She's talented. Do you want me to tell some people about her? I looked at the message, then at Jacob, and then at Claire's list of how much money she still owed. Something inside me changed. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but I understood something important. It's never too late, I said, surprising myself. You can always change, even if it's hard. Jacob nodded, his eyes getting teary. I'll keep trying, even if we can't fix us. I picked up the envelope from Claire that had been sitting on the counter. Maybe some things can't be fixed. Maybe they need to be rebuilt from scratch, with a stronger foundation. Jacob smiled sadly. When did you get so wise? About the same time I stopped being afraid to be alone, I said. Then I handed him the last box. Goodbye, Jacob. As he left, I texted Luke. Tell them about Claire. Everyone deserves a second chance, even family. 1 year later, I was standing in my new apartment's tiny garden, taking care of the herbs I had started growing after the divorce. The basil was growing strong, just like me these days. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. The kids' art show is tonight. No pressure, but they asked about their Aunt Evelyn. Before I could answer, another text came through. It was a photo of a framed check on her office wall. The note on the check said, Final payment. R. Whitman. She had kept her promise and paid back all the money she owed. I smiled and texted back, I'll be there. I was getting ready when LLA called. Are you sure about this? The last time you saw Margaret was 6 months ago at the divorce hearing. I know, I said, but this isn't about her. When I got to the community center, Claire's kids saw me first. They ran over with smiles, their hands covered in paint. They proudly showed me their artwork on the walls. Their paintings were bright, messy, and full of life, signed with their names. The younger one pointed to a painting and said, Look, it's our new house. The picture showed a small blue house with a garden, and I could see someone in the corner, taking care of tiny plants. Is that me? I asked. The boy nodded. Mom says you taught her how to grow new things. Before I could say more, Margaret appeared. She looked different, tired and older. It was clear she had been through a lot. She didn't say much, just nodded at me. Evelyn, she said, but Claire quickly stepped in. Not tonight, she said. Margaret didn't say anything else, but she walked away. Claire sighed. She's still Margaret. I smiled gently. Some things don't change, but some things do. Claire smiled too. She showed me the new banners for her business. Her kids' artwork was proudly displayed, and she looked so much more confident now. I got the Morrison contract, she said quietly. The one you told me about. I know, I said. Luke told me. I almost didn't take it, though. It felt like cheating, using your connection. Taking help isn't cheating, I said. It's knowing you're worth enough to accept it. Then Jacob walked in, looking healthy and happy in a way I hadn't seen when we were married. Our eyes met, and he gave me a small wave. I nodded back, and he was immediately surrounded by his niece and nephew. "He's doing better," Claire said. "He's been going to therapy. He's learning boundaries." "We all are." "Good," I said, really meaning it. Later, when I was leaving, I saw an envelope under my windshield wiper. Inside was a card with a picture of a garden. It was Claire's artwork, and there was a note. "You could have destroyed us all, but instead, you helped us grow. Thank you for teaching me the difference between being mean and empowering." The kids miss their aunt. If you're ever ready to be that role again, on your terms, let me know. At home, I added the card to my memory box, next to the final divorce papers and the first check Claire had sent me. Then my phone buzzed with one last text from Claire. It said, "Margaret's starting therapy next week. She doesn't want to lose another daughter." I smiled. "Baby steps," I texted back. I looked at my herb garden, remembering how dead and dry everything had been just a year ago. Growth isn't always easy or pretty. Sometimes you have to cut away the dead parts, let things fall apart, before they can grow again. I opened my laptop and started working on a new marketing proposal. The client was a small family therapy center. Their mission statement caught my eye. Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. As I typed, I thought about how I was using my own experience to help other families heal. Behind me, a new basil plant was growing, small and uncertain, but reaching for the light, just like all of us, breaking, growing, and moving forward. If this story resonated with you or sparked new thoughts, I'd love to hear your perspective. Please share your insights in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay connected and never miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.